What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Hit or Miss Vault, the channel where we break down the TCG world one card at a time. Today we are talking about something I get asked about constantly in my social circle, and that is, how do we actually invest in One Piece? Not just buy some packs and hope for the best. Where to put your money, what to buy, how long to hold it, and what mistakes are going to cost you. Whether you've got 500 bucks to start or you're thinking bigger, I've got a breakdown for every level today. So if you ever wanted to treat your TCG hobby like a portfolio, this video is for you. Smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and let's get into it. Now, before we talk about money, you need to understand why One Piece is even worth investing in. Because not every TCG is created equal. One Piece as a franchise has been running for over 25 years. We're talking manga, anime, movies, video games, live action. It is one of the biggest entertainment IPs on the planet. That matters enormously in TCG investing because the card game isn't just riding on hype. It's backed by a fan base that has been loyal for decades and continues to grow. The card game itself is produced by Bandai, the same company behind Dragon Ball Super. The print quality, the art, the special card treatments, all of it is premium. Now here's the key thing to understand before we go any further. TCG investing is not the stock market. Let me repeat, TCG investing is not the stock market. The stock market is driven by earnings, revenue, data. TCG investing is driven by liquidity and sentiment. What does that mean? It means that the value of a card or a box is tied to how much people want it and how easy it is to sell it. Those two things are very different from a company's quarterly report. Keep that in mind throughout the whole video. It changes how you think about every decision we're about to talk about. Alright, before we get into budgets and strategies, we need to establish the golden rules. These are principles that should guide every decision you make in this space. Rule number 1, seal is king. Sealed booster boxes will always have a higher floor than single cards. Why? Because a sealed box represents possibility, the chance at a hit. That psychological pull is incredibly powerful in this hobby, and it keeps sealed product valuable when the single markets shift around. Rule number 2, manga rares are your blue chips. In One Piece, there's a card rarity called the manga rare. These cards pull at roughly 1 per 3 to 4 cases, not boxes, cases. They're the hardest to get, the most sought after by collectors, and they have the highest ceiling of any card in the game. Think of them like the blue chips of stocks of the One Piece world. Rule number 3, first printings carry a legacy premium. The earliest set, OP-01, will always be worth more than later reprints. Just like a first edition Pokemon box, the base set commands more than a later print run. Collectors pay for the original story. Rule number 4, buy at MSRP, never at peak. If you're buying at that price, you already have an edge. If you're buying after a set blows up and boxes are going for $200 and above, you miss the window. The goal is always to get in before the hype, not during it. Lock those 4 rules in, they are the foundation of everything else we're going to talk about. Now let's get into the actual strategies, and I'm going to break this down by budget level because what you should be doing with $500 is completely different from what you should be doing with $10,000. We got 3 levels today. Level 1, the $500 budget. I'm calling this the silk growth strategy. Level 2, the $1,000 budget. This is the hybrid strategy. Level 3, the $10,000 budget. This is what I'm calling. We go through each one in detail. No matter where you're at, there's a lane for you. Okay, level 1, $500. This is actually one of my favorite levels to talk about because it forces discipline. You can't afford to make fancy moves, so you have to be smart. And I need to be upfront with you right off the gate. The landscape of One Piece has changed. A year or 2 ago, I would have told you to just go and buy booster boxes at MSRP and sit on them. Simple, clean, effective. But here's the reality in 2026. Getting booster boxes at $100+ is genuinely hard. Supply is tight, distributor relationships take time to build, and by the time most of you are finding boxes on the secondary market, you're already paying a premium that eats into your margin before you even get started. So if you're at $500 level, we're pivoting. We're going singles first. Here's a core idea. You're going to use popular One Piece character cards as your flipping engine, building capital over time, with the end goal of eventually rolling that money into silk products. Think of it as the road to silk boxes, not as a replacement for them. So here's how you actually do it. First, you need to understand which characters moves. In One Piece TCG, the demand for singles is heavily tied to the most iconic characters in the franchise. Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Ace, Law, Shanks. These names carry weight not just with competitive players but with collectors and casual fans who want a card of their favorite character. That crossover demand is what makes them liquid. You can actually sell these cards relatively quickly compared to obscure pools. You're looking for alternate art leaders and parallel secret rares of the big name characters, but specifically the ones you can find raw and ungraded at a reasonable price. OP-01 Zoro parallel, Law alternate art, or Luffy variants across multiple sets. You're not necessarily buying the PSA 10 version. You're buying the raw card in excellent condition, holding it while demand does its work, and flipping it for a profit. The character selection strategy is simple. Follow the anime. Whenever One Piece drops a major arc in the anime adaptation and they're still actively running, the characters featured in that arc see a spike in card demand. Fans who just watched the Wano arc want the Zoro cards. Fans watching the Egghead arc want the Vegapunk and Luffy cards. You're riding the media cycle. So the flip cycle looks like this. You buy a raw alternate art card of a popular character for say $40 to $60. The anime arc featuring that character hits its climax. Demand peaks. You sell for $80 to $120. You pocket the profit and immediately rotate it. While you're flipping singles, you should simultaneously be introducing yourself to the local game store, getting on their list, making yourself a known face. By the time you flip your way to $200, $300 in profit, you want to be close to getting that LGS hookup so you can convert into silk product right away. One more thing on the singles at this level. Condition is everything. You are not buying damaged cards. You're not buying heavily played cards. Every card you buy needs to be at minimum near mint because your asset strategy depends on being able to sell it quickly and cleanly. A crease Zoro card sits in your binder. A pristine Zoro card sells in a week. So at $500, you are a trader first, collector second. Your job is to keep that money moving, keep it growing, and build the bridge towards silk product. The singles flip is how you fund your journey. Now let's move on to the $1,000 strategy. This is where things start to get exciting because at this budget, you have enough room to play 2 games at once. The strategy at this level is called the hybrid strategy because you're splitting your money across 2 completely different investment vehicles, silk products and high-end singles, and letting each one do a different job for your portfolio. Before I break down the split, I want you to understand why diversification matters here. At $500, you had one job. Flip singles, build capital, work towards silk. You couldn't afford to spread thin. But at $1,000, putting everything into one basket is actually the riskier move. The singles market can shift fast. A card that's hot today can cool off if Bandai prints a reprint set. Silk product moves slower, but it's more stable. Having both means one side protects you while the other side grows. Here's the split. 60% to silk boxes, 40% to high-end singles. That's $600 in silk products and $400 in singles. Let's go through each side in detail. Now, the silk side, for $600, your goal is to get your hands on the most valuable silk product you can access at or near fair market value. And there are 2 paths depending on what you can find. Path number 1, the silk case. If you have a relationship with a local store or you can find a deal through a trusted seller, you want to get a full silk case, a newer set at distributor pricing. Usually this is done on a pre-order level. A case is 12 bucks. At $70 to $80 a box, Well, I'm talking about Japanese boxes, at distributor price, a case runs roughly $800 to $1,000. So at $600, you may either need to negotiate or wait for a case to be at your price range, or find a partial case deal, or wait until you have a little more stacked up. But if you can get close to that, it's worth it. A silk strap case is always worth more than the same number of loose boxes because the case format itself signals authenticity and untampered product. Now, path number 2, individual blue chip boxes. You take your $600 and buy 1 to 2 individual boxes of the earlier OP sets. These are what I call blue chip sets. OP-01 is the Romance Dawn, the base set of the entire game. OP-05 is the awakening of the new era. Both of these have already demonstrated long-term demand, and both are on a trajectory where supply is going to get tighter over time. Now, a critical point here, and this ties back to the golden rules we talked about earlier. You are not buying these boxes to open them. I know the pool of cracking packs is real, believe me, I feel it too. But the moment you open that box, you converted a seal investment into a collection of singles. And most of these singles will be worth less than the box was. The value is in the sealed products. Keep it sealed, store it properly, and let time do its job. When I say store it properly, I mean away from direct sunlight, away from humidity, ideally in a cool, dry space. A box that has been sitting in a damp garage for 5 years is not the same investment as a box that has been stored correctly. Protect the product, and the product will protect your money. Now let's go to the single side. For $400, this is like close to half of your portfolio. $400 in one-piece singles, if done right, can punch well above its weight. If it's done wrong, it's dead money sitting in a binder. The target here is specific. You want a PSA 10 graded alternate art leader or high demand parallel secret rare featuring one of the franchise's most iconic characters. Leaders are unique in the one-piece TCG because they sit at the intersection of two completely separate buyer pools. Competitive players need them. The leader card is literally the centerpiece of every deck you build. Collectors want them because the alt art treatments on leader cards are some of the most stunning artwork in the entire game. When you have both a competitive demand driver and a collector demand driver pulling on the same card, the floor stays high even when one side of the market softens. At $400, you can get a PSA 10 leader options from OP-01 through OP-05. The specific card matters less than the condition and the character. Always prioritize the character over the set. A PSA 10 Luffy will outlast a PSA 10 minor character from the same set every single time, because Luffy's demand is driven by the IP itself, not just the meta or the collector cycle. Now let's talk about the parallel secret rare. If you can't find a PSA 10 leader within your budget, your second option is a parallel secret rare of a top tier character. The OP-01 Zoro or the OP-01 Law parallels are the benchmark here. These cards have already proven their staying power in the market. They are not going anywhere. Here's a move that a lot of people at this budget level overlook. They buy raw and they grade it themselves. Instead of spending $400 on a pre-graded PSA 10, you spend $250 on a raw card that looks pristine. Spend $50 on PSA grading fees. And if it comes back as 10, which good raw cards often do, when you buy carefully, you've got a PSA 10 worth $350 to $400. You've created equity out of research and patience. That's the grading loop we talk about in the growth section. And at $400, that's viable. Here's what to look for when buying raw cards for grading. 4 corners need to be sharp, no nicks, no fraying. Surfaces need to be clean, no scratches, no print lines. Centering needs to be tight. Hold the card up and look at the borders. Back of the card matters just as much as the front. Any whitening on the edges, any bends, any print defects, walk away. You need a card that a PSA grader is going to look at and have zero reasons to dock points. Here's the mindset at this level that you need to have. What I want you to carry if you're going into the $1,000 tier is that you are no longer just a flipper. At $500, you are trading, buying and selling to build capital. But at $1,000, you are building a portfolio. That means you think in terms of balance. You think in terms of time horizons. The silk boxes are your 3 to 5 year hold. The PSA 10 single is your 5 to 10 year hold. You stay aware of what the meta is doing. You watch for reprint announcements, but you are not day trading this. You're not panic selling because a box dipped $20 for a month. you are a patient investor. At $1,000, you have enough skin in the game that this needs to be treated seriously. Set a reminder every 3 months to review where your cards and boxes are sitting in the market. Not to sell, just to stay informed. Know the value of what you own, and most importantly, stay connected to the community. From Discord servers, YouTube channels like this one, the tournament results, because information is the edge in this market. Now, we go to the $10,000 budget, which I call the whale strategy. Now, before anyone in the comments say, $10,000 in trading cards sounds insane, I get it. But hear me out, because at this level, we are not talking about a hobby anymore. We are talking about alternative asset investment. And the One Piece TCG right now has one of the most compelling profiles of my alternative asset in the collectible space. Let me put this in context. People put $10,000 into vintage wine, into rare sneakers, into sports memorabilia, into watches. All of those are illiquid, sentiment-driven markets where condition and scarcity determine value over time. The One Piece TCG, specifically its earlier sets and rarest cards, operates by exactly the same rules, and it's arguably earlier in its value appreciation curve than most of these categories. So if you're coming in at $10,000, you need to think like a collector with the discipline of an investor. So let's get into it. Now the split is 70% to silk products, 30% into grail singles, $7,000 in silk products, $3,000 in one definitive grail card. Let's go deep on both. Now for the silk side, for $7,000 in silk products, it's a serious position and you need to deploy it strategically, not just a bunch of boxes and call it a day. The primary target is OP-01 Romance Dawn cases, if you can get your hands on some. I want to be very clear about what OP-01 represents in this hobby. Romance Dawn is the base set of the One Piece trading card game. It is the origin point. Every game has one. Magic the Gathering has Alpha and Beta. Pokemon has the base set. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has Legend of Blue Eyes. These sets become the cornerstones of the entire hobby's value system over time. Not because the cards inside, but because of what they represent. They are the beginning of the story. With $7,000, you want to target boxes of OP-01 and work towards a silk case. So you buy a few boxes and then sell it for you to acquire a silk case at the end. Do your research, buy from reputable sellers, and always verify case strapping is intact. An unstrapped case is not the same product. Within the OP-01 conversation, there is one variant you need to know about, the blue bottom box. The very first print of OP-01, before Bandai adjusted the packaging, had a distinct blue coloring on the bottom panel of the box. This is the rarest version of OP-01 that exists. Collectors and investors who know the history of this game are already hunting this. If you can locate a blue bottom box from a trusted source, you pay the premium, full stop. That is the first edition within a first edition, and its scarcity is going to become more pronounced as time goes on. The second target is not OP-02, it's OP-05 Awakening of the New Era cases. OP-05 is your balance to the OP-01 position. Now here's why. OP-01 is a legacy play. It's already appreciated. It has history. It has the origin story. OP-05 is a growth play. It's far enough into the game's history to have proven demand, but recent enough that silk cases haven't fully appreciated yet. You're buying it into OP-05 and there's still runway left. Allocate roughly $2,000 to $2,500 of your $7,000 to OP-05 boxes and keep the lion's share on OP-01. The ratio should reflect the difference in upside. OP-01 is your anchor. OP-05 is your accelerator. Storage at this level is non-negotiable. When you're holding $7,000 worth of silk product, you need to think about the storage the way a fine art collector thinks about it. Climate control environment, 40 to 50% relative humidity, no direct sunlight, off the floor in case of flooding. Consider photographing and documenting every box or case you own. The serial numbers, condition notes, date of purchase. If you ever need to sell, provenance matters. A well-documented case with a clear ownership history sells faster. Some serious collectors at this level use professional storage facilities, the same one that store sports cards and vintage comics. If you're holding 5 figures of product long term, that's worth looking into. The cost of storage is a cost of doing business. and it protects the asset. The Grail Single. $3,000 for one card. This is the part of the video where I need to shift your entire framework for what a card is. At the $500 level, a card is a flip asset. You buy it, it goes up, you sell it. At the $1,000 level, a card is a portfolio holding. It appreciates over years. You monitor it, you hold it. At $10,000, the Grail card you're buying is a trophy asset. It is the case that defines your collection. It is the centerpiece of the era, and it needs to be treated with that weight. Now the target, 1 PSA 10 Manga Rare. Manga Rares are the pinnacle of One Piece TCG rarity. They pull at approximately 1 per 3 or 4 cases. Meaning, to even get one from case opening, you would need to open somewhere between 36 and 48 booster boxes. That's the supply constraint. Now factor that in, only a fraction of those pools will grade PSA 10 because the card needs to be essentially perfect. And then factor in that the PSA 10 Manga Rare is exactly what every serious collector in this game wants to own. The demand is almost unlimited at the top end. The supply is almost nothing. So which Manga Rares at $3,000? At the time of making this video, the $3,000 range gets you into a number of mangas. Like Sabo, Law, Ace, you can get them in the PSA 10. These are all extraordinary cards. Deep lore characters, stunning artwork rendered in the style of original manga panels, and genuine scarcity. Manga Luffy may require more than 3,000, potentially significantly more. His card carries a premium that the other characters simply cannot match. If your budget can stretch to cover the Manga Luffy in PSA 10, do it. This is the card that will be the face of this game's history. If you can't quite reach it, Ace and Law are both compelling alternatives with their own deep fanbase demand. Ace in particular carries enormous emotional weight in the One Piece story. So why PSA 10 and not PSA 9? This is a question worth answering directly, because there's a significant price jump between a PSA 9 and a PSA 10 Manga Rare. And some people wonder if the PSA 9 is a smarter buy at a discount. Here's the reality. In the long-term collectibles market, condition hierarchy is brutal. The gap between a PSA 9 and a PSA 10 is not linear, it's exponential. As the time goes on and the hobby matures, the PSA 10 population of any given card becomes the only population that serious money chase. PSA 9 find buyers, but they find them at a steep discount to the 10s. When you're holding a card for 10 or 20 years, you want to be holding the version that commands the top of the market, not the version that perpetually compared unfavorably to it. Buy the 10 or wait until you can. Now, how do you verify authenticity and create legitimacy? At $3,000 for a single card, due diligence is not optional. Before you buy any PSA graded card at this price point, you verify the certification number on PSA website. You look at the case. The label should be clean, the case should show no signs of tampering or cracking, the card inside should sit flat with no visible shifting. If you're buying for a private seller rather than a major platform, ask for a video of the card being held under direct sunlight so that you can check for the surface issue. And if anything feels off, the price is suspiciously low, the seller is evasive about provenance, the certification number throws a red flag, you walk away. There are enough legitimate sellers in this hobby that you never need to take a risk on a questionable transaction at this price. I want to spend a moment on something that most investing videos won't talk about: the psychology of holding a 10,000 TCG portfolio. It is genuinely hard. You're going to watch the market fluctuate. You're going to see a month where your OP-01 are worth less than what you paid for. Because dips happen, reprints happen, the market breathes in and out. You're going to see a card you considered buying go up 300% and feel like you missed it. You're going to have moments where you question everything. This is normal. This is what every long-term investor in every asset class experience. The difference between the people who win at this and the people who don't is not intelligence. It is patience and conviction in their thesis. Your thesis at this level is simple. One Piece is a generational IP. The earliest sets of its card game are going to be cultural artifacts. The rarest cards in the game are going to be trophies that collectors with real money compete for. That thesis does not change because of bad month. It does not change because Bandai announces a reprint. It does not change because someone on social media is panicking. You hold, you protect the product, you stay informed, and you let time do what time does to scarce desirable things. It makes them more valuable. At $10,000, you are not in this for a quick flip. You're building something. Treat it like that. Okay, so you've bought your product. Now what? How long do you hold? This is where a lot of people mess up. They don't have a timeline. So they either panic sell too early or hold something that's already peaked. Let me give you the roadmap. Phase 1, 3 to 5 years. We call this the active game phase. Right now, One Piece is still being actively printed. New sets are dropping regularly. What does that mean for you as an investor? Expect somewhere between 50 to 150% ROI on sealed product in this window. That's not guaranteed, but it's the realistic range based on how the market has moved. More importantly, this is your flipping phase. If a box you bought for $100 hit $300, you sell it. You take that profit and rotate it into something older and rarer. You use the gains to climb up the value chain toward a Manga Rares, toward OP-01, etc. Here you're building, not just holding. Phase 2, 10 years. We call it the nostalgia phase. In 10 years, the One Piece manga and anime will likely have concluded. That moment, the ending of the story, is a massive catalyst for the TCG product. Think about what happened with Pokemon cards when the anime was at peak nostalgia. Now imagine that for One Piece, which has a fan base equally as large, at this point, supply of early sets, OP-01 through OP-05, will be essentially non-existent. The silk cases you've been holding, collectors and content creators will pay an enormous premium for a guaranteed unsearched silk case. Box break content is exploding on YouTube right now, and in 10 years, cracking the first edition OP-01 case is going to be appointment viewing. Phase 3, 20 years. We call this artifact phase. This is what I call the Pokemon effect. The kids who are playing One Piece right now will be in 30-something with disposable income, wanting to buy back their childhood. That nostalgia wave creates a completely different tier of value. At 20 years, you only want to be holding the grails. Most mid-tiered cards will have faded. They're not rare enough to survive that long in value. But a PSA 10 manga Luffy, a sealed OP-01 case, those become fine art assets. They are not TCG cards anymore. They are cultural artifacts. Patience is the operating word for all three of these phases. There is no shortcut. Alright, let's talk about how you actually can accelerate your growth once you're in the game. These are the tactics that separate the hobbyist from the serious investor. Number 1, get on the list. This is probably the most underrated move in TCG investing. Build a real relationship with your local card game store. Get on their pre-order list for every new set. If you can consistently get 2 cases per set at distributor pricing, you already have instant equity the moment that product hits the market. That $20 to $30 gap between distributor price and the MSRP multiplied across a case of 12 boxes, that's real money. And that's before the secondary market even moves. Number 2, the grading loop. Here's a strategy that can compound your capital beautifully. Find raw alt-art cards that are near perfect condition. Buy them, send them to PSA for grading, and if they come back as a PSA 10, you've potentially turned a $50 card into a $200 card. Take that profit and immediately reinvest into more sealed product. Run that loop consistently, and you're building real wealth inside the hobby. Number 3, follow the meta, but don't chase it. Watch tournament results. Watch the Treasure Cup events. When a specific leader card wins a major tournament, the alt-art version of that leader is going to spike, and it will spike fast. Here's the rule. Sell into the hype, never buy into it. If you're already holding a card when the meta spike happens, you sell at the peak. If you're watching the spike happen in real time and thinking about buying, you're already too late. The profit has already been made by whoever was ahead of you. Number 4, Watch Bandai's reprint policy like a hawk. Bandai does reprint sets, as we've seen with OP-13 and EB-03. It's part of how they operate. And every time a reprint is announced, the prices on boxes temporarily dip. That dip, that's your buying window. And it just happened recently. The long-term value always recovers once the reprint cycle ends. But in that short window, you can get product at a significant discount. Be ready to move when that news drops. Before I let you go, I have to give you the warning that every investor needs to hear before putting money into TCGs. And I want you to take this seriously. Never invest money you need for rent. Never. I will say it again for the people in the back. Do not touch your emergency fund. Do not touch your bill money. Do not touch anything you need for your actual life. Here's why this matters, specifically for TCGs. Cards and sealed products are illiquid assets. Unlike a stock, you can't click a button and turn your booster box into cash in 2 seconds. If you suddenly need the money and you're forced to sell your collection early, you will take the heat. You might sell for 30% less than the market value just to move the product fast. That's the liquid tax of this hobby, and it's real. The only way to win in One Piece investing or any TCG investing is patience. You hold, you wait, you let the market mature, and you sell when you want to, not when desperation forces your hand. Treat TCG investing like a second portfolio, not a savings account. The money you put in should be money you're genuinely comfortable not seeing for 3, 5 or even 10 years. If you operate with that mindset, the One Piece TCG has one of the most exciting investment profiles in the hobby right now. And if you don't, you're going to learn a painful and expensive lesson. Remember, be smart, be patient, and trust the process. And that's the full breakdown for you guys. From the $500 beginner all the way to the whole strategy, you've got a roadmap now. And if you're just getting started, remember, the best are silk boxes, blue chip sets, MSRP prices, and patience. That's it. That's the formula. If this video helps you, please smash that like button. It genuinely helps the channel more than you know. Drop your questions in the comments below. Now tell me, what's your budget? What sets are you eyeing right now? I read every comment and I will try to reply, every one of you. Until next time, this has been Hit or Miss. Stay sharp, stay patient, and we'll see you in the next one.